So there was supposed to be a film made about me in January 2020, and this is Dr. Garrett's email to the filmmaker on January 18th, 2020. I am Andrew's psychotherapist. I have been working with him in weekly sessions for roughly 2 years. Okay, that's incorrect. At that point, he'd been working with me for like 3 years, but back to the email. I am a psychiatrist and a psychoanalyst interested in the psychological treatment of psychotic persons. Andrew also receives care from an expert colleague of mine, Dr. Copland, who focuses on medication. In my view, the idea of Andrew participating in a film about mental illness has pluses and minuses. It will require a judgment call by Andrew and by you and your crew that conditions are right for your film. I sent this note to Andrew before sending it to you so he could forward it to you if he felt comfortable with the sentiments expressed. Andrew was dealt a painful blow in middle school where he was the object of persistent bullying. Although the etiology of his psychiatric problems is more complex than being bullied at a time in his life when he naturally would have developed the social skills necessary to succeed in life, it had a crippling effect on his development. After the onset of his psychotic illness in college, he was unable to get his life back on track. Not able to achieve solid self-esteem in interpersonal relationships and work, his illness led him to seek these supports in daydreams, which at times take hold in him in a delusional grip. Unable to forge ahead in the real world, which looms hostile when he tries to enter it, he retreats to a daydream world where his future is secure if he only waits. For example, he believes himself to be a comedic genius who will be discovered by a celebrity like Taylor Swift or the Disney organization, who at some point will step forward from behind internet avatars with whom he dialogues to invite him to success, celebrity, and a secure independent life. One of my concerns about Andrew appearing in the film you contemplate is that despite his being able to say the film is not being sponsored by Taylor Swift and is not the beginning of a celebrity he has imagined, he might nevertheless regard the film as his debut of the celebrity future he has been daydreaming about for years. I think it is almost inevitable that he would regard the film as his big debut moment. But this likelihood does not seem to me an absolute contradiction to making the film. If he were to consciously or unconsciously regard the film in this way, I think the conviction would come and go, as does his daydream. Films about people like Andrew must take them as they are. We need more films that show mentally ill people to be fundamentally human beings, as we all are. One way to mitigate the risk of Andrew believing his daydreams has come true would be to make the film not about just him, but about Fountain House and several other Fountain House members, as your collaborator suggested. This approach might help Andrew to experience the film as a less long-awaited break into Hollywood, but grounded in the real world of mental illness and difficult struggle towards recovery. If Andrew were to gain some self-esteem from having contributed to a worthwhile real-world documentary where he participated in a team effort that transcends his individual daydream world, it would be a plus for him. I think he would be a good person to include in the film. He is bright, imaginative, performative, expressive, creatively productive, and has a good sense of humor. Though I have to say, have said to Andrew that he has a very good sense of humor that I'm not sure it rises to the stature of comic genius. Andrew has a natural interest in filmmaking and comedic writing. This interest is real, though it sometimes ends up as a melodrama broadcast to an anonymous internet. About a year ago, knowing that it might encourage Andrew's daydreaming, I suggested that if he really wanted to make a statement, why not write a screenplay about his experiences with mental illness that could be staged at the Fountain House for starters? Then if successful, might find a wider audience. It seemed to me that rather than encourage him to find an entry-level job stocking shelves or working at Starbucks, which would bore him, he might be able to direct his creativity to a project to be staged in the real world. He has written over 50 pages of dialogue, funny and coherent, though he has been unable to shape his vignettes into a disciplined project. In these vignettes, among other content, he shows insight into how mental illness can create compelling illusions. He has an unusual degree of intellectual insight into some of the psychotic mechanisms of his mind. So another idea here. I think it would make an interesting documentary to make a film within a film, where you film Andrew and other Fountain House members working together to stage a play about their experiences with mental illness. This would probably be overly ambitious, but would be interesting and quite different than other films made about mental illness. As to the matter of informed consent to be filmed, although getting consent from Fountain House and several other Fountain House members would be the preferable way to go, getting institutional consent might be a challenge. If Andrew could really grasp the film you want to make is not the film he has dreamed of starring in, I believe Andrew is sufficiently competent adult to make a decision about whether he wants to participate. Because at present he is dependent on his mother's support. I think his mother should be apprised regarding the film. I also think that his psychopharmacologist, Dr. Copland, should have the opportunity to weigh in if he wishes. If including the Fountain House proves unfeasible, I think it might be possible to make a film with Andrew alone, if the film were made with sensitivity to the above concerns. Another angle on the film, which may not sync with your intent, but I think would be interesting to audiences, would be to help Andrew produce the play he has written and film it. He could play himself in the film, and actors could play other characters, eliminating the need for extended consents from psychiatric patients. A film about mental illness you may already know, produced by a colleague of mine, Alice Maher, MD, can be found at thehotstoveproject.org. Interestingly enough, one of the several people with mental illness in the film is actually trying to develop a career in stand-up comedy. He talks about this in the film. From your emails, you appear to be a genuine person who wants to make a meaningful film while being sensitive to Andrew's situation. But unlike an academic curriculum vitae, which I know how to evaluate, I don't know how to evaluate your film credentials. Can you help with that? Michael Garrett, MD.